So now, before we continue, Kurt, let's go back to the beginning of the story. And now I want to hear your perspective. Like,
Oh,
like everything that your mom just said. Like, were you contemplating grabbing the wheel? Like, were you under the influence of anything at this time? You guys just got off a plane, so probably not.
probably. Mm,
Or
I
maybe
was
you
for
were.
sure on some weed, at
Okay.
least.
yeah,
Okay. And
pretty
like
much.
what so yeah, so what do you remember from the car ride and being at the rehab and refusing to go in? Like what was it like from your perspective?
I wasn't ever gonna grab the wheel. It never even crossed my mind.
Mm.
But I was, I think, threatening suicide. Like, hey, I'm gonna end my own life if you take me to this rehab. I'm pretty sure I was saying stuff like
Yeah, you
that.
were. Yeah.
And were you bluffing or did you really feel that way?
Oh, it was a total bluff.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when I would lose big, I felt like doing that, but it
Mhm.
was never anything serious. It was always just like I would rather be dead than be losing this much money. So,
Mhm.
but it was a bluff. I would use that to try to get out of the rehab.
And so why were you so resistant to go to the rehab? You know, I know I've had plenty of times where people that I love dearly are crying an inch away from my face begging me to stop and I didn't stop, or I lied to them, said I was going to stop and I kept gambling. What was your mindset in that moment when you got your mom, your dad crying, begging you to go there and you wouldn't? Like why didn't you want to?
Because gambling was more powerful than my family. Like,
Mm.
I would rather gamble than love my family. Like, at that point, I cared more about gambling than my own parents. And I love my parents more than anything in the world. And I cared more about gambling, like what I was gambling on. So then
Mm.
I just would rather be comfortable gambling in their house and smoking a bunch of weed than go to this rehab and try to stop.
Mm. So what was the rehab? I'm assuming that you did do the 28 days.
I did.
And what was that like?
Uh, it's okay. It was okay.
Yeah, it
Did you
was
get
hard. I think in retrospect, it he was the only one there for quite a bit of the stay because they had just like I don't even know how it went down, but something had happened and they had moved locations or changed ownership or something had happened, and so there wasn't really anybody there but him. So he got a lot of therapeutic attention,
Mhm.
which I think probably in the long term was good for him, but he didn't have really that community piece. I think that was super necessary, and he didn't want to be there, and he didn't want to be there in the first place, right? So that was kind of a problem.
Yeah. So what
So
happened? So after the 28 days, it was okay, but you get out of there, and now what? And what year is this? How close are we to January 23rd,
getting close.
2024?
Half a year away.
Yeah,
Okay.
summer of
Okay.
2023.
So we got 6 months left. So now take us through those last 6 months.
So I got out, was clean for like 10 days afterwards, and then relapsed on like 26 cents on like a daily bonus that I had on one of my sites.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know how it goes. I picked up right where I left off and then was back to that, high stakes stuff, like stealing again and whatever.
Mm. And,
But
and Kim, did like at this point, what guardrails do you guys have up? Like, are you?
So we probably had at this point. I don't think we had Gamban at this point, did we? I don't know how we didn't know about that. I don't think we had Gamban at this point. No, we had some financial protections like on ourselves, and I don't even know if we had your money at that point. Did we? You didn't have any money anyway, though, because you weren't really doing anything at that point because we were
Mm,
waiting for him to go back to school. So
mm-hmm,
let's just say at the second school he went, we'll just say that that's another out of state school in another state.
mm-hmm,
Without too much details on that part of it, but we were kind of just we thought he was okay, and again, I think we were still in this, like after when he got the therapist, we're like, he's all better. And then he went to rehab, he's all better. Like, but it doesn't go like that.
But
Like
now,
he said, he relapsed after what, 9 days out?
but so Kurt, are you trying to put up a facade to your parents to make it seem like you're okay? Like, are you able to lead that double life?
yeah, for sure. I told them
Yeah.
I was clean from gambling and I was gambling.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then he went back to school. We took him back to the second college in a different state, but also not our home state. And so we went back to school and we thought he was good, right? Because we were always like, yay, 30 days. And he's like, yeah, but, he was on 0, right? And we're like, 60 days, good job. And we were all proud of him and everything. And it was all a lie. But we didn't know that at the time. And so he went back to the new college. We got him there, set him up, seemed like it was fine, right? We thought we were good. And then Kurt, you want to take it from there?
No tubs. We're not going to piss in any tubs.
I don't think there were tubs this time. No,
No.
it actually worse probably, but okay. actually worse. In retrospect, the tub was probably the good part, right, Kurt?
For sure.
Oh, sorry. Okay, keep going.
So I went to this college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And essentially was so uncomfortable again of being there. I was clean for like 3 days at this point, and
Yeah.
then like I was so uncomfortable, and I wanted the feeling to go away.
So now hold on. If you don't mind, like let's peel back the onion a little bit. What made you so uncomfortable? Like what was it?
Talking to new people for sure was the main
Okay.
thing.
Because here you are right now, like speaking beautifully. You're about to be on a
Different
podcast.
person, right? Yeah.
Like so yeah. So it's just like it was like more like a social anxiety type of thing, or like was it an anxious feeling, or was it just like a fuck these people? I don't even want to talk to them feeling.
For sure, anxious feeling.
Okay, so it was anxiety. Okay. What else? Like what else made you uncomfortable?
Just a whole new place, something I didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
that I, had a really hard time getting away from gambling. So, and then just started gambling to make those feelings go away.
And did you? So when you were gambling now, so we're like, this is 2 years ago. We're getting to the end. Like, are those best friends from childhood still gambling? Like, are you doing it socially at all, or is it all just you?
All by myself.
All by yourself. Okay. All right. Sorry. So keep going. So you're super uncomfortable. You were clean for 3 days. Then what happened?
Yeah, so I went to a little bit of class this time around.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my mom coming out one week, and I was smoking so much weed at this point, like an unbelievable amount. And I was getting into other drugs and more hard drugs. And I would do these drugs to essentially cope with the losses. The losses would be so painful that I needed these like numbing drugs to like help me like, deal with the big losses.
Mm-hmm.
And then I told my mom I had 100 days, and she was so proud. And then I ended up coming clean to her saying I had 0 days in a car. And then I don't really know what happened after that.
Kim,
Yeah,
do you remember? Do you remember that
during
moment, Kim?
time, so I was scheduled. We dropped him off like late August, and I was scheduled to go out there and visit him in like late September. And we thought he was good, and he seemed to be going to class. And I was checking his location to make sure he went to class, but then found out later that he can just spoof the location in a new place. Like looks like he's in class, but then he wasn't because he'd still be in biology lab like at 10 at night because he'd forget to switch it back. So I stopped doing that because it wasn't really helping. And so then I took him to his first, I think it was your first in-person GA meeting that you went to, right? He was going to some other online meetings at this point.
At that place, yeah.
Yeah, at that place. Is his first in-person meeting at that place. And I went and dropped him off because I'd come to visit because it's kind of far away and he didn't have a car. And he came out of it. And I remember him coming out of it and he was like sweating and shaking. And he was just like, and I was like, wow, what happened in that meeting? And he goes, wow, it was really intense because he hadn't been to only a couple of in-person meetings. And he goes, wow, there's this other kid there and he's on day 0 and it was his first meeting. And I was like, oh, that's great. You're probably such a good role model for him because you're on day 100. And he's like, I'm not, I'm on day 0. And I was like, oh my God, what? Like, so we went and, that whole weekend was kind of terrible, but we had a couple of long talks, and I was like, well, okay, so you're gambling again. So that's not okay because we said you can go back to school. We're still paying all your expenses at this point. You got to keep a 3.0 and no gambling, obviously. Right. So now you've broken that. So can you pull it together or what? And he was like, I don't know. I think I might need to go back to treatment, but I also kind of feel like maybe I just need to stay here and like tough it out and just work it out. I just need to like figure it out. And I was also by this point, we had been going, the first rehab that he was at had a really great parent program, even though it was super small, that I learned a lot from the ladies that ran that. And we had learned at this point about detaching and letting them have consequences and been going to Gam-Anon now for, a few months at this point. And so I was kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of on board with like, this is your situation. You need to just figure it out because this is not my problem to deal with. You need to do this. I already sent you to rehab. Like that didn't really help. Right. I mean, it helped in retrospect, but, so he's like, yeah, I think I just need to stay and I just want to work it out. So then we're like, okay. So we went through the next couple of months with him in the other state. And, we saw him occasionally. He'd come home. And by this point he had gotten really good at lying with his behavior too, right? Because before we could tell when he was gambling because he'd just be so like bad and violent and mean, but he had gotten really good at being loving and sweet and calm even during the gambling. And so we knew he was gambling, but we didn't know it was that bad. And he'd sometimes call and he'd be like, oh, I had a big binge last night and I lost all this money. And we're like, sorry, that sucks, I guess. And, we didn't send him more money, or anything. But then it kind of slowly or quickly, I guess, was devolving into really bad stuff. Right. And then we just kind of had to, that was one of the hard, I had many hard times in this journey, but that was one of the hardest times, like knowing that he was collapsing, and not stopping it and just
Mm.
letting it happen from afar and trying to just love my child and hate the disease and just letting him do whatever he was going to do and get his consequences for that in the hopes that it would turn him. And lucky for us, it did, because sometimes, every parent's biggest fear is that you're going to do that and then your kid's going to kill themselves.
Mm.
Right. And luckily for him, it didn't go that route. It went the recovery route. So he can tell you about how it was for him at that. And then his big collapse is coming. And then, the redemption tour.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
um, so wait, why? So you said that the meeting was intense. What was intense about that meeting, Kurt?
Because I was honest at that meeting. I said I'm lying to everybody about my time, and I'm
Yeah.
gambling like crazy, and I'm high all the time. I'm high right now. And then they basically were just giving me advice on what to do, like come clean to your mom right after the meeting, which is what I think I did.
Yeah. Do you still smoke weed now?
No.
Okay, so now I got a question because so I had a bad experience with weed like 20 years ago, and I've never, or 22 years ago now, or 23 years, and I've never smoked weed since. And I've always been someone who thinks that people who downgrade or people who say that like weed is just weed, like, you know, I don't really buy that. Like, but once again, I don't have a lot of experience, but like, in your opinion, is weed, you know, is it, can it be a lot more, can it be a lot worse than people say? Like, is it something that should be so like embraced the way it is now?
Oh, it's pretty bad.
I mean, is it a case by case though, or is it really like eventually everyone is? Because people who say like, "Oh, it's not addictive," it's like, okay, it's not addictive, but I've known you for 20 years and you smoke weed every day. So how can you say that's not addictive, right?
Yeah. So some people can just smoke weed, I don't know, once a week, like drink alcohol, and it's fine for them.
Yeah.
Like there's those people, but then for me, for my addiction, I was smoking at all hours of the day and was stoned 24/7. Didn't It was really dumb. Didn't have many cognitive thoughts going on. Was affecting people around me, and I had psychosis twice
Mm.
when I was on weed, where I was seeing demons and hearing demons, and it was horrifying. And I never want to experience that ever again. And
Mm.
then my mom can talk about like research that you went over, where it's like
Yeah, yeah.
schizophrenia.
I had done some research because he had this one, like when he had first gotten out of rehab the first time. Well, this was interesting. The first time he got out of rehab, he was like, "Well, I'm not going to gamble anymore, but I still want to smoke." And we were like, "No." And his treatment team was like, "No." And he was like, "No, I can do it. I know everything, whatever." And so we did allow him to come home. That's the time I said when we were kind of condoning the weed. We let him come home because at that point it was either like, okay, we let him come home and he smokes, or we kick him out and he's homeless.
Mm.
Right. I mean, that's the two choices, because he doesn't have friends. He doesn't have any other family here. He doesn't have anything to do. Right. And at that point, we weren't really willing to take that hard line against the weed like we were against the gambling.
Mm.
And so that's why we kind of allowed it. And then right when he came back, I think one of the first couple times he had smoked, he was in the bed for like 24 hours and we were like, what's going on? And he was having like a super crazy, like psychotic break.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying. And after that, I had looked it up and it was like, oh, guess what? People that have those are really possible that they can get schizophrenia, after one of these psychotic breaks. And I'm like, Kurt, you already have a lot of brain chemistry issues, right? Like you shouldn't be messing with this.
Mm.
And then he had another one at college. And then when he went to the second rehab, which we'll get to, a person came and spoke to this family meeting, and his son had actually had a psychotic break after a weed bout and then is now schizophrenic, and I'm like, it's true.
Okay, so I already know this is going to be a two-parter, so it's fine. We got a little bit more time, but we we do need to land the plane eventually. But I want to hear about all this stuff. So
We're almost at the end.
no,
Okay,
no,
Kurt.
no. Listen. I need a bowl of popcorn right now. Like this is fascinating. It's amazing. I think it's gonna be so helpful to so many people. But okay, so last question about weed. Do you think someone who smokes weed 2 or 3 times a day, yet, you know, is a mother of 3 children who has a job and, on the surface, she's very high functioning. Is there a such thing as that? Can someone smoke weed multiple times a day recreationally and it's not eventually going to be like detrimental to them?
I I would say no. I don't think you could. I mean, just like, would you be alarmed if somebody was like, having a cocktail with lunch every day? And then,
Exactly.
yeah, it's the same thing. I
It
mean,
is
I
the
think
same thing, right?
it's the same thing. I don't know. What do you think, Kurt?
Kurt, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard for that to work out. I don't think.
Yeah, it really is. And it's like the people right now who are listening and shaking their heads and Adam's a straight edge square or whatever you want to say. Like, I don't know. Like, I've had people in my life where it's like, I can tell when they're high. You're high right now. Like, you're different. You're thinking differently. And if you're doing that every day, and it's not like for medical purposes, which is also, I think, horseshit, but whatever. That's just my opinion. Yeah, I think, like you said, it's no different than having a cocktail or having a shot. Anyway, so
No,
all right, so now you're so so we're a few months away, but there's still one more big collapse, which leads to a second rehab. So take us there. What happened?
So essentially, just to rip the band-aid off, I started stealing from students in college. I'm not going to get into too many details, but not to give anyone ideas, but I was essentially just taking people's money, other
Mm-hmm.
college students.
Mm-hmm.
And this could have been their food money for the week. This could have been their rent. This could have been the only money they had. This could have been anything. It could have been important to them, and it obviously was, but like I was just taking with no thoughts like that it was even a bad thing. I was like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
never gonna get caught. This is fine. Like, it's their fault. Like, just crazy thoughts like that. And the drugs would numb me out to the point where I could be able to do this and not really think twice about it. Like, if I did this when I'm sober, I'd be paranoid. I'd be, really, I think it's wrong. But like, I was under the influence of so many drugs at this point that it just didn't matter that I was just stealing a bunch of money. So
How were you paying for the drugs? Just from the gambling money?
from the stealing money and gambling winnings,
Yeah. And what other drugs were you doing?
I was doing weed mostly and a lot of psychedelics like mushrooms and LSD and DMT.
Mm.
And I was snorting ketamine for a while.
Mm.
And just a lot of dissociatives, just a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that'll make me get out of my head, just that'll get me to stop thinking about my problems.
Mm.
A lot of these, dissociatives. So
And so you're stealing. Then what?
And then,
yeah, and then I got caught about a month
How'd you
later.
get caught? How'd you get caught?
I was essentially, the police talked to me
Mm.
and they basically said, we know what you're doing. We know you're taking money. You're spending it on all these things. And I was like, okay, yeah. And then they came to my door, like, I don't know, later, and basically arrested me and took me to jail. And I was in jail for a few days, not too long. But it was terrible in there. Like, it was the worst. It was so bad in there. So
Now,
and then
were you in like a holding cell or were you in like an actual jail?
I never got like booked into like my own cell. I was in a holding cell for a couple hours, but I was in booking. So
Mm.
I got in the orange jumpsuit and there were like 50 people in the room with 50 beds and then a couple of books and some TVs with no sound in this big open room with 50 beds. So I was in there for like 2-3 days. So
I mean, talk about anxiety. Like, what was that like? I mean, because now
just the
you're
worst.
coming down from all the drugs, right?
Yeah, coming down from the drugs, wasn't gambling at this point, and just horrible, just scary. Like
Mm.
I'm not cut out for jail. Like I'm not like that. Like, simply put, like
Now, what was that phone call like, Mom?
so the first time, so we knew, like I had said before, like we knew there was some collapse coming, right?
Mm.
Because he stopped asking us for money. So we would send him like a very small amount of money for food every week. And then nothing else, no other money on top of that. And we said, if you want other money, you need to get a job. And he had a little bit of money left from working in the summer. So I guess we must have been holding your money or else that would have all been blown, right? He worked minor hours the summer before. So he had a little bit of money left for that. And we were doling that out to him, which I assumed he was buying marijuana with because he wasn't doing anything else. But he had stopped asking for that. Like he had stopped asking for his weed money and he was almost out anyway. And he had stopped asking like for extras, anything. He had stopped everything. So I'm like, he's getting money from somewhere, right? So we knew that he was somehow getting money elsewhere. We didn't know where. I thought maybe he's selling drugs, maybe he's stealing. I don't really know what he's doing, but it's not good, obviously. And so we were kind of just waiting. And this was a couple of weeks. We felt like something was wrong. He had come home during this and I was waiting for him to like, okay, this is it. And actually, Mark and I had gone out to a birthday or something, and we came home and he was watching the show Intervention, right? And he was like, oh, watch this with me. And I think like, okay, this is it. He's finally gonna like say, I need help, right? It's coming. And then he's like, okay, good night. And we're like, wait, what? Like, where's the, like, you're, I drove him to the airport. I'm like, how's everything's okay? Do you need help? No, I'm good. Everything's fine. Or, okay. All right. Bye. Send him back. And then he had called us one weekend and told us, he's like, oh, I'm stealing. And I'm like, you're going to get caught. He's like, no, I'm not going to get caught. It's fine. Like, no one's going to know, like, whatever. And I'm like, I'm sure there's cameras. I'm sure there's, like, you're going to get caught. And he was so delusional that he didn't even recognize, I don't even think he knew what he was doing at this point because his brain is just so whacked. And then,
what was the motivation to tell your parents that? I don't get that.
Maybe at that point, I think I was looking for help.
Yeah.
I think that was after at that point.
Yeah, he did actually. I think we had talked to him the one day and he was saying that. And I think the next day he was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm in trouble. I think I need to go back to rehab. He goes, I can't, like, I'm still like, this is not okay.
So hold on. He said that to you before he got arrested.
Before he got arrested. And thank God he did, right? Because that's what kind of saved him in our eyes, right?
Right. So he gets arrested. Does he call you? Like, obviously,
yeah. So he gets arrested. So he kind of tells us that he needs to go to rehab, right? So we give him some numbers of some places here in California, and he starts calling and actually making appointments, right? And he has a couple of appointments to actually physically talk to people on the phone. And then the next week is the first like part of the arrest when the cops talk to him. And he said gave him a ticket, but it was like a summons, I think, right? Because they hadn't uncovered all of it yet, right? So we were like, okay, you need a lawyer. Right. So, but you need to find the lawyer. We will pay for it since you're actively calling treatment centers, but you're not going back to school. So he finds a lawyer and, gets that going. And then a couple weeks later, they came to his apartment and arrested him in the handcuffs and took him to jail for the rest of what they found. And by that point, my husband called and he was like, oh, the lawyer called because the lawyer called us, Kurt's in jail. And I was like, oh, okay, great, whatever. I mean, because I knew I knew it was coming. And it was actually good. And I was actually kind of happy that it had happened in retrospect, because the other option was I thought that he was going to be doing these things and someone was going to beat the crap out of him and kill him.
Yeah.
Is what I thought was going to happen. And so I thought jail was better, and when he was in there, I didn't even I was pretty unsympathetic, I think, because he was like, oh, it's really terrible in here. And I was like, yeah, I know. Like, this is your life. Do you want to be someone that goes in and out of jail? Because that's where you're heading if you don't pull it together. And you can choose that if you want, but I'm not doing it. And he's like, no, I need help. I already called, these rehabs or whatever, and I need help with this. And I was like, okay, good. And so then my husband went out and stayed with him while he finished the hearing and everything. And, seeing your kid in the orange jumpsuit on Zoom was like really kind of surreal, honestly, because I was but then, so thankfully he was actively reaching out for help before he got arrested, because if he wasn't, we had already talked about, if he gets arrested, we're leaving him there. We're not going to get him because we can't get him. But he had made active steps, not just like, oops, sorry, I'll quit gambling, after the fact. It was a pre-arrest thought. So we kind of helped him through that.
So Kurt, so you get out of jail, you go to the second rehab. At this point, are you ready? In your mind, are you ready to stop?
Right after I got out of jail, I was continuing to gamble.
Okay.
Because I literally couldn't stop no matter what. Like, I could not quit. And I was still smoking weed at this time for the next 2-ish months before I went to rehab. And then at this point, I couldn't stop, but I was desperate to get well. Like, I was willing to try anything to get well. Like, I did not want to go back to jail. I was so ready to get well, but I just couldn't stop. So I just needed a little bit of assistance to stop.
Mm. So what was the rehab like? Why was this rehab different than the first one?
Well, first of all, I went there for 10 months, the second rehab,
Wow. Okay.
which was 10 times as long as the first rehab. And I had I was so invested. Like, I did everything they had to offer. They had extracurriculars and activities and groups and therapy and counseling and everything they had to offer. I would jump on and do. And then as I got further along into the rehab, it felt like normal life.
Mm.
The first 4-ish months in there were pretty hellish, and was pretty miserable the entire time. Wanted to leave the entire time. Was ready to get out of there. Like, was so uncomfortable. Not quite as uncomfortable as I was going to college for the first time, but it was up there.
Mm.
But essentially, 4 months in, I got a job, and
You got a job inside the rehab?
I
So
did.
so it's almost like prison.
No, he had a
Well,
job outside the rehab. Well, some people work inside the rehab. He had a job outside, but
Oh, outside
I
the
had an outside job.
So but you were like living at the rehab.
Living at the rehab, had an outside job, and after 90 days, you get the freedom to go places
Mm-hmm.
like by yourself.
Yeah.
So at this point, I was working 40 hours a week and going out to eat with friends in the nighttime and going to movies, and it felt like normal life. I was just my home was just the rehab, and I lived there. So
And
for the
when
next
was this? What was the so is this part of your abstinence date?
yeah,
Okay, awesome. Okay, now hold on. Quick question about the rehab. And if this is like a weird question, we can cut it. But like, how did you pay for it?
do you want to explain that, Mom?
okay. So he went to Beit Shuva in Los Angeles,
What's that?
which is a drug and alcohol rehab mainly, but they also have a gambling program, which is partially state funded.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the state paid his entire stay there. Like, they paid whatever they pay. But Beit Shuva in Los Angeles is an amazing, amazing place. And they've been doing this work for probably 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they have lots of donors, lots of fundraising. They have an amazing network after having been in this space for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people go in under different abilities. Like, I think some people self-pay, some people Medicaid, some people whatever. But somehow we didn't pay anything.
Wow.
We
Okay.
paid, the state paid some, and I think it was charity funded
Yeah.
through their foundation for the rest of it.
Wow. Okay.
Absolutely a gift beyond compare.
So now, so you get out. So you say that you were embracing everything. Do you remember the moment in the rehab when you thought to yourself, like, okay, like I actually have a shot at this now. Like I do think that like I'm gonna be able to stay on this path.
I'd say about 100 days in,
Yeah.
because I wanted to leave like so bad the first 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I got this newfound acceptance that I'm going to be there for a while and that I'm going to have to like work this. I was working it hard before that, but I was like, I need to do this like for life. That's what I kind of realized at day 100. I was like, yeah, this is a lifelong commitment. I'm going to be at this rehab for like a year. I just got to accept that and move on.
Yeah. And so you get out of the rehab when?
November of 2024.
Right when the modern meeting was launched. That's amazing.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect timing.
So you get out of the rehab November 2024. You know, Kim, you and your husband are so happy. Now, could you see like a physical difference in him?
Not really physical, but like there was such a change in his. Oh, there was just such a change in him, right?
Mm.
Because the first couple of months were rough.
Mm.
Like the first couple months, especially, like we would go down there. We're in San Francisco, they're in Los Angeles, so we'd drive down there, we'd fly down there, we'd visit, we'd take his puppy down to see him. I mean, he was just broken. I mean, he was broken when he went in, and slowly, he started to come back, and he would try to leave. Like he was saying, he would call and he's like, I'm leaving. I'm going to leave after 30 days. We're like, you can leave whenever you want. It's not a prison. You can stay there or you can leave, but we're not giving you any money or
Right.
support at all. So then he finally, I remember, like he's saying, he finally had a couple months in, because he was like, okay, I'll leave after 3 months, 90 days, I'll stay 90 days. And we're like, okay, whatever. And then I remember when he called and he said he had talked to his counselor and he said, I just need to stay here a year, don't I? And his counselor's like, okay, there we go. Now we're on board.
Right.
It took him a while, but
And
but he just,
were you doing the 12 steps in there?
For sure.
Awesome. Yeah. So it was a combination of like 12-step based meetings, group meetings, doing one-on-one stuff.
Yep.
I'm
Pretty
sure
much.
like probably like a lot of journaling, stuff like that.
I did do some journaling
Yeah.
and work the steps in that time.
Wow.
yeah, but you did the steps outside with GA, right? Like you'd go
I
out
did the
GA.
steps with the Gamblers Anonymous sponsor,
Mm-hmm.
and I met with him, and we worked on step work like on my free time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so take us to November. You're out, and now it's like, all right, now we gotta find our. Obviously, I'm assuming that like the rehab like set you up with all the resources you needed once you left there. So like, just kind of tell us what the last 9 months have been like.
Well, the number one thing that Beit Shiva taught me in there was how to build a community outside of Beit Shiva, because they have a great community in there, and I can go back to their services on Fridays, like their Shabbat services
Mm.
and things like that. But they taught me how to build a community in Gamblers Anonymous. And what I did in the beginning for GA was I always looked for differences. You gambled brick and mortar, you gambled on things I didn't gamble on. You're doing drugs still. Like I looked for all these differences in the people. And then when I got more time in the program, I found that I'm very similar to everyone in this room.
Mm-hmm.
Like the person who's 75 and has like 43 years of abstinence and gambled brick and mortar when he was in his 20s. Like he's still a compulsive gambler. I'm still a compulsive gambler, and I'm very similar to him because we both had a gambling problem. It doesn't matter like what we gambled on or anything like that. It just matters that we have gambling problem. And his stories about like 40 years ago on his like gambling stories are relatable now that I actually listen instead of just thinking about my own stuff.
True. So true. Yeah. So well said. So what do you think is the reason then that right now, and it's not so much in California, and I just talked to Eric recently, who, you know, California is the mecca of GA, and there's so many great meetings. But I think Kim can back me up with this statement that like across the country, across the world, like GA it's struggling right now. It's struggling to get women, it's struggling to get young people like yourself. Why do you think outside of California, maybe New York, that is happening?
I think our meetings in Los Angeles are very special.
Mm.
And it includes everyone. Like we have women, we have young guys like me, we have old guys, all kinds of ethnicities. It's very diverse in GA, where I'm from. And it's because we include everybody, and we go to fellowship after the meetings. Like after every meeting, a bunch of us will go out to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like events hosted by the LAIG, which is the LA Intergroup.
Mm.
And they host like picnics and softball games and things like that include everyone, and people will get to go for free. And like people like to share at the meetings. I heard something that some other meetings from other people, like people don't want to share, but like at my meetings, everyone's so connected and everyone knows each other that everyone wants to share.
Yeah.
Because like after the meeting's over, we spend like 30 to 45 minutes talking outside of the meeting. Like upstairs, we talk for like 30 to 45 minutes every time.
How many people are in your meeting?
The ones I go to get anywhere from like 20 to 40.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how many days a week do you go?
I go 2 to 3 days a week.
Awesome. And so I guess my last question is, well, it's probably not my last question. I'm probably gonna have a couple questions after that. But like, when you sit here now, a year and a half away from a bet, and after hearing your story, it's like, we're all miracles, but like, goddamn, like you are especially a miracle because, you were just exposed to this at such a young age. But we obviously live life a day at a time. But how are you able to kind of, like, do you ever have a moment where it's like, how the hell did I get out of that? And like, do you ever have, and I'm just being honest because I have the same feelings of like, do you ever have these moments where you fear or that like, I got to keep going because like, I don't want to go back to that? Like, take me through like that mindset.
Yeah, I fear is kind of a part of my thing because like I fear about going back to jail,
Yeah.
and I am convinced that if I go back to gambling that I will start stealing again
Mm.
because my story has shown that I pick up right where I left off, and I will need secret money because we have my parents control my finances and I only get a few $100s at a time. So if I want to go back to gambling, I will start stealing again and will go back to jail. And they don't go easy on second time offenders.
Mm.
So fear in that regard is part of my story for sure.
And do you have have you had any urges in the last 9 months? Like, are you getting, as you get further and further away from your last bet, is it getting any easier, or is it some days are harder than others?
The maintenance gets easier, but I do still have cravings and urges for sure.
Mm.
Usually when something bad happens,
Yep.
like I've had a couple of pretty bad things happen to me in the past couple of months.
Yeah.
One of my friends actually passed away from a heart attack.
Mm.
He
So
was a close
sorry.
friend, and we were playing basketball, and he passed away. So that was pretty tragic. And I had a couple of cravings in there, but I've worked a solid GA program at this point where I can rely on people in the program and my higher power and other aspects that I can just get through moments like that without gambling.
Mm. What do you say to someone who's listening right now who is not a quote unquote GA person?
You don't have to be a GA person to get recovery from gambling. Like there's lots of different ways to get recovery. Like you don't have to go to GA. That's just what I do. That's just one method of how to get recovery.
See, now you say that, and I love it, and that's what everyone should say. But do you think that everyone, if they found the right meeting and the right group of people, that they would benefit from it? Like, do you think that people should try to do a little GA shopping and find their people, find their tribe?
You could try it. Yeah, you could totally try it. I tried it and it worked for me. And I'm like way younger than everyone in the meeting, but it still works. Like
Yeah.
because I look for differences in the beginning, like I mentioned. Over time, you'll see the similarities.
Yeah. What would you say is, if you could pick one thing that has hit you like a ton of bricks and still stays with you? Like, I'll tell you mine. Like, I think it's in step 4 in the red book where it says you took away the ability for others to live their own life. Like, I manipulated them into doing that. Like, what's like a nugget or a piece from the literature in GA that you hold as like your number one source of recovery?
Well, for me, what is that?
I think I know what you're going to say.
What is it?
Service.
Oh yeah,
Is that what? I don't know. That's what you always say.
I was going to say page 17, but that has service in it.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, I always say this: being of service is massive for me in GA. That's when I'm the best in my recovery. Like I just took on a service commitment to be the secretary of a pretty big Santa Monica meeting on Fridays.
Awesome.
So I took that commitment and like calling people and texting with people and just taking on service positions. And I might become a trustee soon for LA Intergroup, so that you need 2 years to do that, and elections are in January, so I'll just be at 2 years.
Amazing.
So there's just service positions that are that I can take advantage of and help the other compulsive gambler. And that's when I'm the best in my recovery, is when I'm helping another compulsive gambler or another person.
And in the last 9 months, when you're doing all this amazing work and you're putting yourself out there, has it made your anxiety easier to manage?
Yeah, I can talk to people now pretty easily.
It's like awesome. It's fucking
even
great.
Like last January, like I was having a hard time talking to people I haven't seen in a while, but like now I can just meet new people and talk to them and be friendly, and it works out. And now I have like a bunch of friends, which I never thought was possible. Like when I was gambling, I had no friends and no connection, and now I have like all these wonderful friends and friend groups and people I hang out with. So it's just amazing how it works out.
And Kim, like as you're watching him say this, like what's going through your head right now?
It's just like I'm so proud of him, because he was just in such a bad, horrible, dark place for so long and so miserable. and even in the early recovery, he was still so miserable as he's trying to work it out, and just watching what has happened to him over the last 18 months, and now, like, he calls us every night to kind of give us a check-in and what's going on and everything, and just all the amazing things that he's doing, and he says, like, he has friends and he goes out with the GA people and he hangs out with school people and he has a wonderful roommate and they go out, and like, just watching him have a life,
Mm.
and now having a purpose in life, and moving, towards a goal, right? Instead of just kind of like, barely existing and just, watching him literally self-destruct, but seeing him now and hearing him talk and it just makes me really, really happy to
Mm.
see him doing so well.
I can only imagine as a
Yeah.
parent what it feels like.
Yeah.
Kurt, now that you've had time to reflect and look back, like what do you think about your parents as far as just how they stood by you and how they I just feel like they played it really well where they pressed you when they needed to and they were always there for you. Like have you had time to reflect and think about like what could have been without them?
I'm very lucky that I have my parents, because a lot of people that did what I did lose the relationship with their family
Mm.
and no longer have that connection. And I hear it a lot in the meetings. Like, people will lose the relationship with their parents or wife or whatever. And I'm very lucky that they stood by me this whole time. And I look up to them. Like, I want to be like my parents one day. They're both very successful. They both have, did their best with their kids, and they both work great jobs and love their kids very much. So I want to be just like them when I'm older. And like, I'm just very lucky and fortunate.
Hmm. It's a great place to end, I think.
You're lucky for you too, Kurt.
Kim, Kurt, I mean, I had some high expectations going into this, but you exceeded it. I mean, this has been amazing. It's been eye opening. It's been gut wrenching to listen to, but I mean, I just think you're such an inspiration, both of you. And just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you're doing. We got to spread the word.
Amen.
Yeah, I
Amen.
appreciate it.
All right. Thank you
Appreciate
again,
that.
guys.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be
All
right
right,
back.
bye.